Well, we need to get up.
Tomahawk, a horrifying cannibal horror movie with Kurt Russell in his top form, an undervalued gem. Writer and director S. Craig Zahler created this fiercely western and visually horrific film in 2015, but the film didn't get as much commercial and critical appreciation as it truly deserved. In the process of compiling content based on some of the greatest western horror movies for another video of ours, we came across this masterpiece of a film and had then decided to dive deep into this classic that needs to be hunted with goodwill and watched. With its indulging and gripping cinematic character and an ensemble of great actors, the film feels enjoyable yet haunting. Apart from the obvious attraction of the film, i.e. the Troglodytes, the film packs a group of skilled stars, in the form of Kurt Russell's heroic town sheriff, Richard Jenkin's lovable yet bumbling backup deputy Chicory, Matthew Fox's gun-slinging and trigger-happy Brooder, and equally important was Patrick Wilson's crippled loving husband, Mathew O'Dwyer. There's blind and completely amputated pregnant women, but there's also a loving couple that can sacrifice anything for their better half. There's a man who gets scalped and dissected alive, but there's also a warm relationship between a sheriff and his backup deputy.
I'm coming with you.
No, I need you here. You need to keep an eye on things.
No, I'm coming. I'm coming.
In short, the dynamics in this film are vast to say the least. Bone Tomahawk revolves around a sheriff and a loving husband, both of whom have a responsibility. They've got no other choice than looking out for Deputy Sheriff and Mrs. Samantha O'Dwyer, respectively, as they've been abducted by a group of cannibalistic savage Indians who have no name, no language, and no qualms for being brutal.
There's only one group that hunts with these.
Who?
They don't have a name.
What kind of tribe doesn't have a name?
Set at the dusk of the 19th century between the borders of New Mexico and Texas, this film is an essential watch for every horror fan, but serves as an equally great piece of entertainment for the regular movie buff. So let us cut to the chase, shall we?
Before we go into our list, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click from you, but it means a lot to us. Thank you. Let's begin.
What are the many ways that you've woken up from sleep? Could you ever think of waking up from sleep because someone was slitting your throat with a rather blunt knife? That's how this tremendous western horror starring Kurt Russell begins. It sets the tone right for the entire film and lets viewers know what to expect. The scene is brutal because you can hear the blood gushing out and the bones cracking due to all the back and forth action of Purvis's knife. He and his friend Buddy are robbers who ambush unwitting people to kill them and loot their belongings. It seems Purvis didn't properly slit one of his victims who tried to shoot the assailants. However, the more experienced Buddy explains how he should slit all 16 veins present around the neck. After this lesson on human anatomy, they hear neighing and galloping of horses coming from a distance, and decide to move up towards the rocks where they could hide. As they walk through the bushes, they come across several skulls of both man and animal. Purvis clearly seems apprehensive about this setting that seems rather ominous, but Buddy on the other hand is more than confident. Purvis hears some ominous howling coming from the distance, but Buddy discards them as his imagination.
You hear that?
It was a gust.
That's a real musical gust.
Finally, they stumble upon what looks like a red Indian burial site. Purvis once again expresses his concerns over this place, but the good old Buddy wishes to prove his western manliness and daring personality. He tells Buddy that it's a burial ground of a bunch of godless savages, and civilized men like themselves shouldn't be concerned. However, our civilized Buddy didn't shy away from scratching his itching crotch with his gun, and did he forget how he killed people a while back? Nevertheless, Buddy should have been concerned about the godless savages after all, because one of them shoots an arrow into his neck before pouncing to kill him with a spear. Purvis runs away for his life, but he bumps into a few crematorial rocks due to extreme anxiety. Despite the fall, he managed to flee. 11 days later, we meet Patrick Wilson as Arthur and Lily Simmons as his wife Samantha, in the quiet town of Bright Hope with a population of 268. Arthur has managed to break his leg by falling off a roof because he went up there to work during a storm. job. Arthur is agitated because he is grounded at home because of the injury, and it's affecting his professional life, but Samantha implores him to see the silver lining. They would be together for a long time, and Arthur melts. It's war moments like this that keep the morale up throughout the film's runtime. The sweet and sour relation that Arthur and Samantha share would later become the basis of the film's plot. Anyway, we see that Purvis has made it to Bright Hope and buries his loot near a tree. From there, he goes to a local pub named Learned Goat. However, Bright Hope's backup deputy Chicory notices the entire event and reports to Sheriff Franklin Hunt, played by Kurt Russell. It was Chicory's official opinion that the suspicious Purvis was in fact suspicious.
It's the official opinion of the backup deputy that his manner was suspicious.
Richard Jenkins plays Chicory, a man who's young at heart and soul while his aging body is failing to keep up. The conversations between Chicory and Hunt are not just heartwarming but also provide us with the necessary doses of comic relief. While we're on the topic of comic relief, Arthur and Samantha give each other a bit of relief by mounting on each other. Nevertheless, Hunt and his backup deputy leave the station to make a survey on the suspicious man. Also present at the pub is a local flamboyant, playboyish man named Brooder. They meet Purvis, who introduces himself as Buddy. And when his secrets seem to come to light, he attempts to make a run, but is shot by our trigger-happy Sheriff Hunt. Kurt Russell is ever so elegant in his gunplay and his overall acting as a Western sheriff. He then asks Brooder to fetch the town's doctor, while he and Chicory take the injured Purvis to the station. We come back to Samantha and Arthur's, where she's tending to his deep wound, and they have a little heart-to-heart. She asks him to read her a poem that he once wrote from Wyoming. However, before he could oblige, Brooder knocks on their door regarding a medical emergency. Of course, the emergency being the extraction of the bullet from Purvis's leg. The town's doctor was drunk and Samantha was the only one with medical skills. Samantha finds that Purvis is burning with fever, so she announces that she'd have to remain back even after the surgery to monitor Purvis's fever. Hunt and Chicory leave while Deputy Nick is ordered to stay back with Samantha and drop her home when she's done with her business. We are once again taken back to Arthur's house, where Hunt informs him that Samantha would be late because of her occupation with the prisoner. It's now that Arthur reads the poem out loud and alone, although he was shy and embarrassed when Samantha had asked him to read it for her. Meanwhile, a stable boy named Buford gets killed by some violent tribals. The murder was quick and bizarre. One slash through the neck by a bone tomahawk and then a spear into the skull, and that's it. Buford was done with tending to the horses. Forever. The following day, the murder is reported to Hunt by the owner of the Learned Goat pub. Hunt was surprised why someone had come to his house and not the station to report a crime. However, the station as well as the jail cell were both empty.
Nobody in there.
Nobody. Not even in the jail cell.
No, sir. Completely empty.
Hunt asks the man to get Chicory and meet him in front of the stable. They go there to find the bloody and gutted remains of poor Buford. The killers had pulled out his intestines and probably eaten him as well. Hunt then makes a move for the station only to find it empty. Everyone was gone. Nick, Samantha, Purvis, there was no sign of them. But Hunt did find a strange arrow stuck in one of the wooden walls of the station. He asked Chicory to fetch a certain professor to the Learned Goat, and himself went to speak to Arthur and inform him that the sheriff and the entire station staff couldn't keep his beloved wife safe, and that she had been abducted, or worse, killed by some tribal Indians. Of course, Arthur doesn't take it well and storms to Learned Goat. However, we get to see the fine gentleman that Sheriff Franklin Hunt is. As Arthur simply heads to the pub, Hunt not only closes the house's doors, but also picks up Arthur's shoes. It was obvious that Hunt expected that Arthur would want to take part in searching for Samantha.
Do about my horses?
They're not my priority right now.
Those are my finest.
Quiet! Ask about horses again, I'll slap you red.
At the pub, Hunt and Arthur are joined by Chicory, who had fetched Talltrees, the educated Indian professor. He informs the group that the group of tribals who abducted Samantha, Nick and Purvis are only known as cave-dwelling Troglodytes and have no name. When Hunt asks why they didn't have a name, Talltree says that they don't even have a language and hence no name. The Troglodytes are savage beasts, no better than animals who indulge in cannibalism and even rape, and eat their own mothers. The other Indians consider the Troglodytes foul bloodlines and don't consider them one of their own. When asked to take the men to the Troglodytes, Talltrees refuses because he doesn't want to be killed and even warns Hunt and the others from stepping foot into their forbidden territory. However, he does tell them about where they can find the cannibalistic tribe. Hunt announces that he'd be going with Mr. Arthur O'Dwyer to find his wife and Nick, because neither of them have a choice. Unlike other films where the sheriff is expected to stop an injured man from coming on a deadly mission, in Bone Tomahawk, Sheriff Hunt is smart enough not to stop Arthur from being a part of the posse. Hunt knew that such an argument was fruitless and a mere waste of time. However, Chicory convinces Hunt into taking him along, and Brooder offers to join the posse because he felt an obligation to Mr. and Mrs. O'Dwyer, as he was the one who had gotten Samantha involved in the entire situation, and felt a duty towards bringing her back. Also, Brooder claims to have killed more Indians than anyone else present at the pub, much to Talltree's disgust. However, Brooder claims that the comment was
It isn't a boast.
The men decide to assemble after 15 minutes and begin the search. After this point, we see 3 extremely different kinds of preparation for the journey. Arthur has completely lost his calm and pays no heed to his injury. He grabs his pistol and bullets, but then also picks up the letter he wrote from Wyoming, in the hopes of reading it soon to his beloved wife. Hunt seems to be more thoughtful and packs supplies for his journey, but his wife Lorna is a tad bit apprehensive about the plan. She fears Hunt will not return. The most touching, however, is good old Chicory. He doesn't forget to pay a visit to his wife's grave. He tells her how he's got to do what he's got to do for a few good people who ran into trouble. But most importantly, he's optimistic that he'll see her again. The posse assembles, but before starting the journey, Hunt gives Arthur a piece of advice, that Arthur should try and keep his calm and not lose his mind, because that'll only make them weaker. The search party leaves for a long, arduous journey. After riding for a day, they camp at a secluded location. Yeah, well, every place is secluded in the wild, but Brooder sets up jingles in the perimeter and instructs everyone to shoot anything that moves the bells. His reason is that any person that approaches the camp
Any person that approaches a camp in the dark without identifying themselves is a criminal or a savage.
They take dinner and go to sleep, but that's when Chicory starts talking to Hunt about random things. He asks Hunt things like,
Can you read a book in the bath?
While this may seem like a foolish question to ask before going to bed, the conversation that follows throws light on the relationship that Chicory and Hunt share. They are not just a backup deputy and the sheriff, but Hunt actually takes his time out to listen to the bumbling Chicory and puts up with the annoying little habits of Chicory. In fact, the relationship that these 4 men share is brought out to the audience by their conversations. Russell, Wilson, Fox and Jenkins are great actors in their own right, so naturally they share amazing on-screen chemistry with each other. Not for one moment does the conversation feel dull, because the men only help increase the tension of the already palpable story, making it more gripping for the viewers. They leave the following day and later make it to a pit stop to rest their horses. The film is tense, but then director S. Craig Zahler manages to put in bits and pieces of comic relief here and there. While trying to tend to his wound, Arthur O'Dwyer says,
Oh, Jesus, goddamn.
Sorry.
It turns out Arthur had his wife's opium tincture that he may or may have not taken. However, Hunt and Chicory extract it out of him by force because there was a risk of him falling off the horse if he had any of that stuff. The men ride for the rest of the day and camp at another location. However, 2 Mexicans approach them discreetly and Brooder kills them, much to Hunt's opposition. Brooder believed that the 2 Mexicans were a scouting party for a larger group of robbers. Brooder seems to be some sort of a bully, but he's got brains. Maybe he didn't really have to kill the 2 men, but he doesn't like taking chances. And as far as his morals and ethics go,
If you want to question my morals, do it later.
he suggests that they pack up and camp someplace else, a place that's defensible. Although Hunt loathed Brooder's actions, he saw that Brooder was making sense and agreed with him. They head out and camp at another place. However, they get ambushed by a group of raiders who take all the horses and injure Brooder's horse, Saucy. To relieve her of the pain, Brooder shoots her. With the horses gone, the only option they have now is to walk the last leg of their journey, which was about 2 days worth of walking. Arthur suggests that they should compact their belongings and only carry what's absolutely necessary, and also that they should sleep in the daylight instead of at night. Hunt reminds him that the valley they were heading to was a long way from there, but Arthur's resolve to bring his wife back to safety was unshakable. Hunt asks Arthur to head out before them and get ahead of them while they pack up and carry his belongings. They finally catch up with Arthur, but after a bit of a walk, his leg begins to hurt more than ever. He asks the other three to go on without him in the hope that he would catch up while they were sleeping. Arthur walks alone through the bushes and the wild, through the twists and the bends. He explores the beautiful parts of Malibu, California. The plains looked pretty from a distance, but they hid all kinds of monsters within their depths. The animals, the terrain, the raiders, the robbers. Everything seemed to be working against this one man who was determined to find his wife. This is the beauty of Zahler's filmmaking. He lets his characters develop and connect with the audience. We get to see his reality. Where he is, where he's going, where he's been put geographically. There are hardly any directors who take the time to build their characters. And if you're making a Western horror, then long shots and character development become indispensable. Moving on, Arthur manages to catch up with Hunt, Chicory and Brooder after 2 hours of them beginning to rest. They decide to leave at twilight. Just before resuming their journey, Brooder cracks an unfunny and hurtful joke about Samantha O'Dwyer.
Before you catch up, I'll try to refrain from flirting with Mrs. O'Dwyer.
It was untimely and unnecessary, and it naturally pissed off Arthur, who pounced on Brooder and hit him in the process, damaging his leg further. Now his leg was really broken. Hunt suggested that Chicory should amputate the leg, but Arthur refrained, and he did that pretty loud and clear. A bat in China could have heard him say no. Finally, it was decided that the leg would be set instead of being amputated. Chicory gave him a teaspoon of opium tincture and left him the bottle after keeping some with himself, in case Samantha or Nick needed it. The most beautiful thing about Arthur O'Dwyer was that the man hardly lost his temper, and whenever he did, he was quick enough to apologise about it without holding any grudges. The apology came straight from the heart and went straight to the hearts.
This is going to penetrate.
Later that night, and after travelling a bit of distance, they hear the same growling that they heard in Bright Hope on the night of the kidnapping. Sheriff Hunt wasted no time to get cautious, nor did he underestimate his enemies. It's revealed that Brooder had a personal grudge, hatred, and animosity against the Indians because they killed his mother and sisters. Here we have to understand the time in which the film is based. Back in this time, the Native Americans saw the white people as nothing more than intruders who wanted to snatch their land and their way of life. On the other hand, the white people, the Sons of Freedom, believed that they were merely following the law and also taking part in the British notion of white man's burden. It would be unwise to relay anything of this sort to the present time when things are much smoother and more peaceful between the two communities, notwithstanding some animosities. The following day, the men reach the Valley of the Starving Men. They go deeper into the valley and walk through the caverns, where beside them lay skulls of various animals. This is where the fun and horror begins. The men get attacked by arrows and tomahawks. Hunt takes one in his arm, Chicory gets hit with a stone on his head, but the worst fate befell upon Brooder, whose wrist got amputated. Brooder asked for some dynamite, his repeater, and his cigar. Brooder knew that this was it for him. He could no longer be a part of the search party. After Chicory and Hunt go ahead towards a cave in a nearby hill, Brooder notices that the tribesmen make the growling sound from their neck instead of their mouths. However, Chicory and Hunt's hunt was short-lived and they get ambushed and imprisoned by the savage Indians. While being dragged, Chicory notices Brooder dead with a bone tomahawk stuck into his head. The only good part about this ordeal was that they meet Samantha and Nick. Purvis, however, had been eaten. In one of the most brutal scenes filmed in the history of Hollywood, the savages first scalp Nick's head on screen before cutting him into two halves from the middle. When Samantha hears that Arthur would be following a trail left by Hunt, she gets furious because coming to this hell of a place was simply suicidal because Arthur had to face 9 of the savages. She was quick enough to judge how stupid Hunt was, but didn't fail in blaming Arthur for climbing up the roof in a storm. These reactions are simply astounding to the viewers. How a woman's mind works is beyond us all. But don't you worry yet, because our man Arthur is woken up from his slumber. Meanwhile, Hunt devises a plan to fool the savages into drinking the tincture of opium. They manage to take down 2 of them, and Arthur takes down 2 more. It's now only 5 to go. Arthur notices that the men had some kind of auditory device fit into their necks through which they growled. He cut out the device from one of the men and used it to make a growl while he got himself into a good vantage point. He gets one of them, but by this time, the leader of the savage Indians figured out the opium plan and came to exact his revenge on Hunt. They make a deep gash in Hunt's stomach and stick the burning whiskey flask in there. But Arthur was just outside, and he tricked another one into getting killed. As Hunt tried to warn Arthur about the last one of them, the dumb imbecile managed to reload the repeater and shoot him. However, Arthur shot the boar-head Indian, and Hunt first severed the man's foot and then decapitated him with the bone tomahawk. But Hunt wouldn't live to see another day, so he asks for his repeater and tells Chicory in a profound manner.
Say goodbye to my wife. I'll say hello to you.
As Mr. and Mrs. O'Dwyer make their way back, they hear 3 gunshots coming from the cave. Sheriff Franklin Hunt had got them all, keeping Bright Hope safe from the menacing and deadly savages. Interestingly, the cave that's shown in the final act of the film is the same cave where Tony Stark builds the first Iron Man suit, in the first installment of the movie Iron Man. Who are the cannibals? The film describes a savage cannibalistic tribe of men as a nameless tribe of beasts who are an impure bloodline of the Native Americans. This gives the impression that the tribe might be purely fictional and has no resemblance to any real tribe. However, this might be further from the truth, as there have been stories and rumours that the Californian Death Valley was and still may be home to an advanced civilization of cave dwellers called Have-Musuvs. The paranormal magazine Fate magazine published an article in September 1949 about a legend titled Tribal Memories of the Flying Saucers. While the story describes them as being beings from another world that settled in the Californian desert, other legends refer to the Have-Musuvs as giant men who were cannibalistic beasts. Furthermore, they even ate their dead. Interestingly, in 1915, people found remains of various artifacts in the Lovelock caves. Even to this day, people claim to see Bigfoot-like men in the Death Valley desert, but no one really has any substantial proof about these beasts from the legends. Another inspiration from the cannibals comes from the monsters of films like The Hills Have Eyes and the Wrong Turn anthology. Whatever may be their origin, the troglodytes shown in the film were absolutely savage, sadistic, and brutal. Be it a figment of imagination or an inspiration from a myth or legend, the troglodytes are not to be messed with.
Hold it up.
Why this hidden gem needs more attention and appreciation. This film gives equal importance to all the characters. However, Russell, who's no stranger to cult classics, stands tall as the first among equals. Bone Tomahawk bears resemblances with John Ford's 1956 film The Searchers that starred John Wayne. However, unlike The Searchers that constantly lifted the mood with goofs and jokes to overshadow its dark theme, director S. Craig Zahler did little to tone down the severity and gravity of our posse's situation.
Door's open. Why are you in my breakfast?
As a genre, Western films are witnessing a declining number of fans, mostly because the genre has been overexploited in the past. Yet Zahler managed to make a gripping film out of it, and the horror elements were spliced so aptly with the Western genre DNA that Bone Tomahawk feels like a fresh piece of work, unmade and unthinkable before.
That valley is at least a 2-day walk.
I'll try to match your pace. If I fall behind, I'll catch up when you sleep.
We can assure you that the film will be memorable for you. There are more than a few scenes that will be etched in your memory for a long time after the credits roll, like the one in which Chicory hurries through having his corn chowder and spills it all over, even spits some of it in the bowl, or the one where the gun-slinging Brooder has to show his emotional side before putting down his injured horse Saucy. Of course, let's not forget about the brutality depicted when Nick was stripped, scalped and slaughtered. Did you ever notice how the lack of a particular ingredient in the broth makes it taste superior? Likewise, the remarkable feature about the film is its lack of music. The first tone of music comes after a good 43 minutes into the film, and even that lasts for just about a minute. This not only adds more depth into the actions performed and the words spoken, but also helps us see through the minds of the characters. Zahler definitely trusts his actors and lets them add depth to the story instead of making them mere tools that forward the story. So that was it for today's video. If you want us to explore other films of your choice, feel free to mention them in the comments section below.
This is all the time we had for today's episode. We hope you guys liked it. It would be awesome if you guys can take some time to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to tell us which topic you want us to cover in the comment section. Have a fantastic day ahead and stay safe.
Go out the way you came in. Don't dawdle.